Good afternoon, my friends. Today is all about mid-tempo double bass drumming. Those damn mid-tempos from 140 to 180 beats per minute. So from what I see at the Drum Technique Academy with our students and also from my own experience, getting this nervous twitching motion down at a higher tempo, step number one, is actually the easier step. And then the second step, climbing down the BPM ladder, is a bit more difficult, but the good news is that there are certain tools in our toolbox that we can use to slow down the beta swing and slowly work our way down the BPM ladder from 180 to 170, 60, 150 and 140 beats per minute. So today I just want to talk about what's working for our Drum Technique Academy students, what has worked for myself, and hopefully you find this useful as well. So first, let's agree on the right time to start working down the BPM ladder. The right time or the right starting point is after you have mastered the twitching motion at a specific tempo. So for most of my students, the starting tempo is always about 170 up to 210 beats per minute. So really fast at times with this fast twitching motion. And by the way, if you don't really know what I'm talking about when I'm mentioning this fast twitching motion, please just watch some of the first episodes of this Road to 300 BPM video series. Talked a lot about that twitching motion in those videos. So when my students are starting out, they are all at a higher tempo, and the difficulty in the beginning is that actually most of the time the starting tempo for the right foot is not the same as the starting tempo with the twitching motion for the left foot. So most of the time it's something like, okay, right foot is able to play at, let's say 190, 195, and left foot is at 185. So before we start to think about working our way down the BPM ladder, it's more important to be able to play at the same tempo with each foot separately. So if the right foot is 195 and the left foot at 185, you want to try to meet somewhere in the middle. So in this case, your goal would be to play it around 190 with both feet, controlled twitching motion. Once you're there, then now is the right time to work your way down the BPM ladder. When it comes to this topic, luckily we have different tools in our toolbox that we can use to slow down the beta swing. Those are number 1, seat height, number 2, beta angle, number 3, the bass drum beta and especially the weight of the bass drum beta, and number 4, additional beta weights, and finally number 5, before I forget about this one, also really important, the position of your foot on the footboard. And today we're going to talk about the most important one, the first one that I always recommend to check out, and the first change I always recommend to try, because this is the one that gives my students the best results. And this one most important change when working down the BPM ladder is seat height. So we want to lower our seat height to the point where either our hip joint is at the same height as our knee joint, so actually our upper leg is parallel to the floor, or even more extreme, our hip joints being lower than our knee joints, so sitting extremely low. With this low seat height, you get two big benefits, just changes. The first big change is that with this new seat height, especially if the hip joints are lower than the knee joints, then it becomes extremely difficult to actively use our upper leg. I'm talking especially about the hip flexor. The cool thing about this low seat height is that this way we can make sure that the weight of our leg is always on our pedals. So the weight of our upper leg and lower leg is on our pedals, and this just makes the ankle technique way more effective. And the second big benefit we are getting this way is that with such a low seat height, it becomes way easier to consciously control the up and down motion of our heels. And actually you can try this at home right now. You don't even need to sit in front of your drum kit for this one. Just place your feet flat on the floor with a higher seat height. So if you have one of those office chairs, make sure that you're sitting in a higher position so your knee joints is lower than your hip joints, way lower if possible. And then start with this fast twitching motion, the up and down motion of your heels by quick contraction of your calves. Done, Okay, and now lower your seat height extremely, so your hip joints are way lower than your knee joints. Now again, start to move your heels up and down, so the ball of your foot and your toes are always in touch with the floor, and you're basically just bouncing your heels up and down. Try this for a couple of seconds, and I'm sure you feel a bit of a difference right there. It's a bit easier to control this up and down motion from our heels if you're sitting lower, and actually that's what we need. If we want to work our way down the BPM ladder, we have to slow down this up and down motion from our heels. And this way we will slow down the beta swing and we will be able to work our way down the BPM ladder. Alright, so for our workout today, last week the final workout I pushed up to 230 beats per minute, which again is quite fast for me at the moment. For those of you that are watching the 300 BPM video series for the first time, I hurt my left ankle and I'm basically just working my way back up the BPM ladder. But although my goal is 300 BPM, you still can't neglect those other tempos. So today's workout session is going to be only about mid-tempos and endurance. And I'm gonna work my way down the BPM ladder. I think I'm gonna start at 180 and go down to 170, 160 and so on. It's quite funny, in the past when I heard drummers talk about the ankle technique, most of them had the opinion that the ankle technique starts at 180 or 190 and you can't play slower than that. And from my students and myself, I can tell you, once you already got the ankle technique down at 180, it's a cool tool in your arsenal to be able to work your way down the BPM ladder, because with the ankle technique, once you got this down, basically at tempos 140, 150, 160, the pedal is doing all of the work for you. So all my students that got this down can play at those mid-tempos for extremely long periods of time, again because the pedal is doing most of the work for them. During the workout that's coming up, I'm going to talk a bit more also about the foot position and the seat height, so I'm looking forward to this one. See you at the drums. So at the drums right now, starting tempo is 170 beats per minute for today. So it's going to be 5 minutes at 170, 5 minutes at 160, 5 minutes at 150 and 5 minutes at 140 beats per minute, using the ankle technique all the time. So I've adjusted my seat height. I'm going to work my way down the BPM ladder, and the further I'm climbing my way down the BPM ladder, the further I'm going to move my feet back on the footboard. So let's do this starting at 170 beats per minute. .170 felt good. What I can see while I'm playing double bass is that my knees actually are moving up and down way more with the lower seat height. The rest is basically the same as always, focusing on my heels and the up and down motion. Now at 160 I'm going to start to move my feet further back on the footboard. What I also have to tell you is that there are two big disadvantages to this low seat height. Number one is actually you put a lot of extra stress on your lower back, especially if you're lazy like me and you're hunching like that. That's bad when you're sitting higher, and it's even worse when you're sitting so low. And the second big disadvantage is, at higher tempos, I actually like to also activate my quads a bit and push into the pedals to decrease the beta swing. And with this low seat height, if I'm sitting like this, like applying pressure for my upper leg, this puts my upper leg in a really weird position that I can immediately feel. It's not like a sharp pain, but I can feel some extra pressure right here around my hip joints, which is not something that feels really good. That's a disadvantage for sure. So now let's go down to 160 beats per minute. 160 felt quite good as well, especially when you're switching from the eighth note triplets to 16 notes at that tempo. Basically it feels exactly the same like this kind of up and down motion right here, just with my pedals underneath. So let's go down to 150. Now we're going to climb down the BPM ladder some more, and now our goal is 140 beats per minute. So at this point, at 140, that's like the lowest I can go with the ankle technique. And the reason for that is that below 140, actually the beta swing, with the beta swing of the ankle technique, we want a constant back and forth. And at one point, the tempo just gets so slow that you can't get a constant back and forth beta swing anymore. The beta swing gets interrupted, and then the technique changes a bit. So 140 is the lowest tempo that I can go. And with these pedals, actually, I can almost feel that the footboard starts to hit right here, this part of the pedal. So I'm just going to demonstrate this real quick with just the right foot going down the BPM ladder. And that's the lowest I can go, and because the footboard constantly hits this part right here, so that's like the maximum. I think it's like more than 90-degree beta angle, and that's the slowest that I can go with this constant back and forth. So now let's try 140 for a couple of minutes, and then we are done for today. Yeah, that's it for 140. At 140, this one is really difficult to control. Good news is that we have some other tools in our toolbox that help us slow down even more. I could use a different bass drum beater, but right now I'm really happy with those. I could use additional beater weights and attach them around the middle on top, right below the bass drum beater. It's the next possibility, because then you just have more weight that's pushing back and slowing the beater down a bit. And the third one, I could increase the beta angle even more. But again, the biggest bang for the buck is to lowering your seat height and just getting used to this bigger up and down motion from your heels, because it's way easier to control it with this low seat height in comparison to sitting extremely high. All right, that's it for this practice session today. Done right here. I'm going to head back to the car, and then we're going to do a little lesson recap and talk about some more stuff that you can try and do to work your way down the BPM ladder. And we are done with today's practice session, mid-tempo double bass. So the good news is right foot works really well. The bad news is at around 140, I still feel the limitations from my left ankle. So I don't really have the full range of motion yet. That's why it's more difficult to slow down and play at 140. 150 was still good. 140 performance went down. It was okay, but not what it used to be. So mental note to myself, I'm gonna practice at mid-tempos more often. Actually, I just thought that I'm gonna focus on the faster stuff, but I have to focus on the mid-tempo stuff as well, because I need to get that range of motion back with my left foot. So now here are some of the things that work really well for our Drum Technique Academy students when they're working their way down the BPM ladder. First step, lowering your seat height. Lower the seat until your hip joints are at the same height as your knee joints, or even lower. That's the first step. Second, always keep in mind that you want to move your feet further back on the footboard if you want to slow down with the ankle technique. Then if this doesn't do the trick yet, and actually I could have done the same thing today because I struggled at 140, one thing that you can do is add beta weights. That's always like a good thing to do. With beta weights, just one advice: beta weights that weigh around 5 to 10 grams, that's not enough weight. You're gonna need more, so 20 to 30 grams works out really well. And actually, you already get a positive effect if you place the beta weight around the middle of the beta shaft, even the lowest position. If it's a really heavy beta weight, you can place it on the lowest position as well. And it has a positive effect when it comes to slowing down and working your way down the BPM ladder. Of course, you can always also place it right below the bass drum beater itself. This kind of changes the feel of the pedal, but it helps you slow down as well. Next would be beta angle. If you increase the beta angle, then this will automatically increase the beta swing. And in the end, actually, it's almost always a combination of these specific factors. And then at one point, that's the great news. At one point, when your heel and your ankle is used to this big range of motion and it feels like second nature, then you can get rid of most of these extra little helpers like the beta weights or the extreme beta angle or the low seat height, and you can sit normal again. And yeah, that's it for today's practice session. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all a great day. Cheers from Vienna. Bye bye.